What if I told you most of the thoughts rattling around in your head, they aren't even originally yours? Just let that sink in for a second. You might assume that every decision, every conviction, every sort of knee-jerk reaction, well, that it's uniquely you.
Yeah, you might think that's the stuff of, like, dystopian fiction or something.
Yeah.
But here's the actual truth. It's a genuine phenomenon. It's real.
Mm.
And it's subtly shaping your world right now.
Think about it. From the moment you were born, really, you've been swimming in this sea of influence, school, sure, but also the constant hum of media, the unspoken rules of social groups, Even those tiny invisible triggers that make you think or do certain things, it's almost like, well, programming.
Exactly. Programming's a good word for it.
Yeah.
You believe you're making your own choices, navigating freely, but often you're just following these well-worn grooves that have been laid down for you.
Right. And have you ever stopped to wonder why the news always seems so negative? Or why scrolling through social media can sometimes just leave you feeling angry or agitated? And what about companies pushing trends that make you feel like you're missing out unless you buy more stuff?
That feeling, it's not random, not at all. That's the system. It's a byproduct of these forces at play.
And here's the thing, if you don't wake up, if you don't become aware of this, you'll just be played. You'll live life on autopilot.
But today, that changes. Right here, right now. Next few minutes, we're going to talk about how you can actually regain control, how you can spot the strings, the levers pulling your thoughts, and basically how to think sharper, more independently.
Yeah, reclaim that mental landscape. But fair warning here, once you really see the truth, once you see these mechanisms, you can't unsee it.
That's true. And that awareness,
Yeah.
it actually makes you more discerning, maybe even a bit dangerous to the status quo. So if you're ready to stop being manipulated, ready to stop being passively influenced,
Stick around, because what you're about to learn, it might just change everything.
okay, let's really dive in.
Let's do it. So imagine your mind is like a courtroom.
Huh?
Okay. And what's on trial? Your own thoughts, your thinking process.
And the prosecution.
Yeah.
That's basically your inherent biases, always trying to make a case based on assumptions.
Right. And the defense, well, that's often your ego, isn't it? Fiercely protecting whatever you currently believe.
Definitely. Your ego wants to be right. So who's the judge in this whole setup?
It should be you. You're supposed to be the impartial judge. But here's the catch. You might be, let's say, an unqualified judge.
Well, not unqualified in terms of intelligence, but maybe lacking insight into your own mental machinery.
It's tricky.
Because every single day, you're making decisions, forming opinions based on emotions, assumptions, belief that maybe you just absorbed, not ones you critically examined.
Exactly. And this is where the brain gets really interesting, maybe even a bit sneaky. It's a master illusionist, a storyteller.
It really is. It convinces you that your beliefs are true simply because they're your beliefs.
Think about online arguments. How often do people really question their own perspective? It's rare.
Almost never. And that inability, or maybe unwillingness to question oneself, that's the first crack. That's weak thinking starting to show.
Whereas the power of critical thinking lies in asking, hang on, could I be wrong here?
Precisely. Am I missing something? That simple question is huge. Without it, we just keep reinforcing what we already think, whether it's right or wrong.
Let's make this more concrete. Like, have you ever had a really strong gut feeling about someone?
Oh, sure.
And then later you find out you were totally wrong. Or maybe you assume someone's being rude because they didn't reply to a text quickly.
Yeah, and then it turns out they were in an emergency or something completely different.
Exactly. In those moments, your brain isn't working with facts. It's just filling in the blanks.
With assumptions. And the scary part is, it does this constantly, subtly, all day long.
But the good news is you can train it. You can become more aware, less likely to jump to conclusions.
You absolutely can. But the real question is, do you want to do that work? Because it means giving up the comfort of certainty sometimes.
Right. Trading that blissful ignorance for the power of clarity, it's a trade-off.
It is, but it's a powerful one.
Okay, let's tackle another myth, this idea of the brain as a perfect supercomputer.
Yeah, that's not quite right, is it?
Not really. In reality, your brain can be surprisingly, lazy.
Lazy might sound harsh, but it's about energy conservation. Thinking hard literally burns calories.
Right. Evolutionarily, it wants to be efficient. Take the easy route.
And that has huge consequences for decision-making. It means shortcuts, jumping to conclusions.
Grabbing the first explanation that just feels right instead of digging deeper.
Think about it. A smooth-talking liar versus, say, a brilliant scientist who maybe stutters a bit.
The lazy brain often goes for the smooth talker, right? It's easier to process, less effort.
Exactly. And it's the same reason why changing our minds feels so hard sometimes. Sticking with old beliefs, even illogical ones, is just less work.
And then there's the overconfidence factor. The brain often thinks it knows more than it does.
Oh, definitely. You see it all the time. Like after a stock market crash, suddenly everyone knew it was coming.
Or during elections, right? Everyone's an expert political analyst.
That's often the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. People with limited knowledge overestimate their confidence.
And if you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm immune to that.
That might just be the effect talking. It's tricky like that.
So how do we fight back against this lazy, overconfident brain?
You have to consciously force it to work harder. When something feels instantly convincing, stop, pause.
Ask the tough questions. Like, what's the actual evidence here?
What's the other side of the story? Is this comfortable because it fits my views or because it's actually accurate?
Most people don't do that, do they? They prefer feeling certain over being right.
Sadly, yes. But pushing past that comfort zone, that's where the real thinking happens. That's how you win at life, really.
Okay, let's be blunt now. Most people. They're ridiculously easy to manipulate.
It sounds harsh, but it's often true. And if your first thought is, oh, not me.
That probably makes you more vulnerable, ironically.
Absolutely. Think about simple examples. A burger commercial makes you hungry.
Or you form a strong opinion just from reading a headline. We all do it.
Or feeling an instant connection with someone online based on, like, 2 interactions. That can be manipulated, too.
Now, manipulation isn't always evil, right? It's sometimes just persuasion.
True. It's a spectrum. But the real danger is not even realizing it's happening, operating on autopilot.
So how does it work? What's the main tactic?
A big one is appealing to cognitive ease. Your brain likes things that are simple, familiar, and emotional.
Ah, okay. So simple slogans, repeated often.
Exactly. Fear-mongering headlines that grab you emotionally. Confidence, even if it's just bravado, often trumps quiet competence because it feels easier to trust.
So defending against this means tuning into your own reactions.
Precisely. When you feel that strong emotional surge, anger, fear, excitement, triggered by something you see or hear, pause. Deliberately.
And ask yourself, okay, wait, who benefits if I feel this way?
Right. And what's the actual evidence? Would I believe this if it was presented calmly, without the emotional hype?
It's that pause that makes the difference. Reactors versus thinkers.
Exactly. Those who pause and think, they become dangerous because they can't be easily played. They start seeing the game.
Which brings us to that internal battle, emotion versus logic. We've all been there.
Oh, yeah. You know you should stay calm in an argument, but then something triggers you.
And boom, logic is gone. Or you swear you'll stick to a budget.
And then that shiny new gadget appears, and suddenly the budget seems flexible.
Huh. It's because emotion often runs the show, doesn't it? Even when we think we're being logical.
That's the key insight. You can be making a purely emotional decision that feels completely logical at the time.
And it happens fast, right? Emotion hits before logic can catch up.
Much faster. Fear makes you jump before you know why. Anger makes you lash out before you think it through.
And then the logical brain kind of scrambles to justify the reaction afterwards.
Yeah, plays catch up, trying to make sense of what just happened. And remember, emotions themselves are unreliable narrators.
How so?
They're influenced by everything. Memories, biases, how much sleep you got, whether you're hungry.
So you could make a life-changing decision based on essentially nothing more than a mood swing.
It happens more often than we'd like to admit. The solution: create distance. That pause again.
Between the feeling and the action.
Exactly. Feel the strong emotion. Pause. Ask, is this reaction based on facts or just how I feel right now?
Mastering that pause. That's a superpower in today's world, isn't it?
It really is. You become the person who thinks while others are just reacting. Huge advantage.
Let's talk about echo chambers, that feeling you get on social media where everyone seems to agree with you.
Yeah, it feels validating, doesn't it? But it's not accidental. It's often by design.
The algorithms feed you what you like, what you agree with.
Because your brain loves agreement. It's comfortable. It feels good to be right, or at least to feel like you are.
So we follow people like us, read news that confirms our views.
Block out the dissent, yeah. And the tech reinforces that loop. More of the same, again and again.
And the danger there is what? Your thinking gets weaker.
It gets lazy. Your ideas go unchallenged. Repetition starts to feel like truth. Your confidence goes up, but your actual understanding might be shrinking.
Which, again, makes you easier to manipulate.
Definitely, because you're not used to critically evaluating different viewpoints.
So the way out is to actively break it.
You have to. Intentionally seek out challenging material. Follow people you disagree with, not to argue, but to understand.
Read news from different perspectives.
Right. It's not necessarily about changing your mind on everything, but about sharpening it, testing your own beliefs.
Like mental strength training.
Exactly. The strongest thinkers are the ones who constantly put their own ideas to the test.
Okay, so if testing ideas is key, what's the secret weapon of critical thinkers? You hinted at it before.
It's not having all the answers. It's asking better questions.
Like a detective, not just, did you do it, but the questions that force the truth out.
Precisely. Most people ask weak questions like, is this true? If you already lean that way, your brain says, sure.
So what's a powerful question?
How about, what evidence would prove me wrong?
Yeah.
That forces you to actually consider being mistaken. It strengthens your thinking immensely.
Ooh, that's a good one. What else?
Another killer question. Who benefits from me believing this?
Following the motivation. Media, businesses, influencers, they often want something.
They often do. Profit, power, influence.
Yeah.
Asking who benefits cuts through a lot of noise.
And you mentioned one earlier that felt like a real game changer.
Right. How do I actually know this?
Because most people, if pushed, can't really answer that, can they?
Often no. The answer is, I heard it. It feels right. My group believes it. But questioning the basis of your belief, that forces deep thinking.
That's what separates those who really know from those who just believe.
Exactly.
Let's talk about memory and certainty. We've all been there, absolutely sure about something.
And then found out you were wrong.
Yeah.
Convinced you locked the door, certain you had that conversation.
You're believing some fact that turns out to be totally false. Why does that happen?
Because your brain isn't a perfect video recorder. It edits reality. It fills in gaps. It even subtly distorts memories to fit your current beliefs.
Wow. Okay. And one of its biggest tricks is confirmation bias.
Yeah, huge one. You notice and remember stuff that supports what you already believe, and you ignore or forget stuff that challenges it.
So once you believe something, you start seeing proof everywhere.
Pretty much. Your brain filters reality for you, and then there's the illusion of truth effect.
What's that?
Just hearing a lie repeated often enough can make it start to feel true, even if you initially knew it was false. Think propaganda, fake news.
Okay, that's quite concerning. So the counter strategy is constant vigilance.
Basically, yes. Actively question everything, especially the things you feel most certain about. When you catch yourself saying, I just know this is true.
Pause.
Pause.
Yeah.
And ask, do I actually know it based on evidence? Or does it just feel true? Dig into sources. Check the other side.
True thinking starts when you stop blindly trusting your own thoughts.
That's a great way to put it.
What about intelligence? Surely being smart protects you from bad decisions.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But history is littered with brilliant people making terrible blunders.
So high IQ doesn't equal good thinking.
Not necessarily. In fact, sometimes intelligence can actually hinder good thinking.
How? That seems counterintuitive.
Smart people are often better at rationalizing. If they want to believe something or desire a certain outcome, they can be very skilled at finding logical-sounding reasons to support it, even if it's fundamentally flawed.
Using their intelligence to justify biases rather than overcome them.
Exactly. And there's often an overconfidence bias, too. If you're used to being right, you might trust your judgment too much, get blindsided.
And even geniuses aren't immune to emotions taking over.
Not at all. Emotional hijacking happens to everyone. The brain wants what it wants, and it'll find reasons, logical or not. That's how smart people fall for scams or get into bad relationships sometimes.
So the solution, even for smart people, is humility.
Stay humble. Assume you might be missing something. Actively play devil's advocate against your own beliefs. Seek out criticism.
Because thinking you're too smart to fail is exactly when you're most likely to.
That's often when the biggest mistakes happen. Yeah.
Okay, let's address the listener directly for a moment. You probably think of yourself as a free thinker, right? Guided by reason, evidence.
Most people do. It's a comfortable self-image.
But what if I told you most of your beliefs, your values, even your core sense of who you are, they were largely handed to you, programmed into you almost since birth?
It's a challenging thought. But think about the layers of influence. Parents, culture, education system, media.
Your political views, your religious beliefs, even what you consider success. Wouldn't those likely be different if you were born in a different country?
Almost certainly. Or think about family influence. Fears, habits, values, so much is absorbed unconsciously.
Yeah. The really unsettling question is, how much of your thinking is actually yours? Product of your own independent analysis.
And consider this. Established systems, governments, corporations, media often benefit when people follow the herd, don't they?
Easier to manage, easier to sell to, less likely to challenge things.
Independent thinkers are harder to predict, harder to control. They question authority, they analyze trends, they don't just accept things.
So the first step towards real free thinking.
Question the origins of your own beliefs.
Yeah.
Ask, do I believe this because I've researched it, weighed the evidence, or just because I've always been told it's true?
Breaking down that internal programming, stop being a puppet, essentially.
It's about taking conscious control.
We touched on emotional hijacking, but let's revisit the trap of emotional thinking specifically. We all regret those heat-of-the-moment decisions.
Oh, absolutely. The angry text you wish you could unsend. Quitting a job impulsively. Saying yes when you meant no because you felt pressured or excited.
It's like emotions just grab the steering wheel, overriding everything else.
Instantly. In those moments, the brain wants action, not facts. It stops analyzing and starts reacting. But crucially, you still feel like you're being rational.
Right, and different emotions push us in different directions. Fear makes us miss opportunities.
Excitement makes us ignore red flags.
Anger convinces us we're absolutely right even when we're demonstrably wrong.
Emotions just don't care about logic in that moment. Critical thinking is about what is right, objectively. Emotional thinking is about what feels right, subjectively.
So that pause we keep mentioning is vital here too. Step back before big decisions.
Absolutely. Let the emotional wave crest and recede a bit. Then ask that crucial question.
If I were completely calm right now, would I still make this choice?
Exactly. And if the answer is no, or even maybe not, that's a huge red flag that emotion is driving the bus.
So emotions aren't the enemy, but they're unreliable narrators.
Perfectly put. The key is knowing when they're in control and consciously taking back the wheel before you drive off a cliff.
Let's talk about the cost of not doing all this, the cost of passive thinking.
It's a stark reality, isn't it? Most people think they're thinking, but they're really just reacting, consuming without questioning, accepting without analyzing.
Letting the world dictate their thoughts without even realizing it.
And society, in many ways, prefers passive thinkers. They're easier, right? They buy the trends, follow the rules, don't rock the boat. It takes effort to think independently.
But the danger of being passive is huge. It's not just laziness, it's being actively manipulated every day.
By advertisers, by politicians, by social media algorithms, all designed to shape how you think and feel, often without your conscious consent.
And the ultimate cost is losing control of your own mind, letting others decide your beliefs, your opinions, your choices.
Until that moment of awakening, the moment you start asking why, that's when you start taking back power.
Because critical thinkers challenge things. They analyze. They decide for themselves.
And that makes them dangerous to those who profit from passivity. It disrupts the easy flow.
Okay, so we know the brain likes shortcuts. How do we actively break free from them?
Let's be direct. Your brain, it's lazy. No offense, mine too. It wants to save energy.
We talked about that evolutionary reason, but it leads to things like stereotypes, right? Generalizing to avoid effort.
Exactly. Which causes all sorts of problems. But there are other shortcuts too. Believing someone just because they sound confident.
Trusting authorities without checking. Making gut decisions instead of looking at the facts.
These shortcuts feel efficient. They make you feel like you're thinking. But really, you're running on autopilot.
So the solution is to catch yourself in the act. Question those automatic reactions.
Yes. When you make a snap judgment, pause. Ask, am I really thinking this through or just assuming? Am I taking a shortcut here?
Challenge those first impressions. Force your brain onto the longer, harder path.
The path to truth often is longer and harder. Real thinking is slow, sometimes messy, often uncomfortable, but it's the only way to see reality clearly.
That's the process that takes you off autopilot and makes you an actual thinker?
Precisely.
Let's get even more brutal now. Your brain, it's a liar.
Huh. Well, it certainly can be. It twists reality, filters facts, rewrites history, all to benefit itself, really.
To make you look good, feel comfortable, be right.
Exactly. It convinces you that what you want to be true is true. Think about how you remember arguments. You probably remember your clever points more than your mistakes.
Or finding excuses for errors instead of just admitting fault.
That's the brain protecting your ego,
Yeah.
protecting itself from feeling wrong or uncomfortable, and confirmation bias feeds right into this.
Seeing only what confirms your views, ignoring the rest. That explains echo chambers, conspiracy theories.
It fuels them. And here's a kicker. Sometimes, the smarter you are, the better your brain is at defending its biases. You just become a more skillful liar to yourself.
Wow. So intelligence isn't protection. It can make the self-deception more sophisticated.
It absolutely can. So the only real strategy is to actively seek discomfort. Look for evidence that proves you wrong.
Challenge your own beliefs like you're trying to disprove them.
Yes, because the truth often isn't in what makes you feel comfortable. It's in what challenges you, what makes you pause and rethink.
Okay, let's revisit manipulation. Because it's so pervasive, people still think they're immune.
If you think you're immune, think again. It's happening every single day.
Advertisers, politicians, influencers, media.
Everyone is vying for your attention, your clicks, your agreement, your money. And if you're not actively resisting, you're being steered without knowing it.
Social media is a prime example, isn't it? Seems casual, but it's highly engineered.
Totally. Every post, every feed is curated to manipulate. You exploit your anger points, your curiosity triggers, just to keep you scrolling. It's business, not personal.
And the news often prioritizes reaction over importance.
Fear, outrage, divisions, those get clicks, they get engagement. Because emotional people are easier to sway, easier to control. They look for quick solutions, someone to blame. Rational thought goes out the window.
So the final defense layer, recognize your own emotional triggers.
Yes. When you feel that intense surge, anger, fear, whatever, hit the pause button, ask, why am I feeling this so strongly? And crucially, who benefits from my reaction right now?
Because just being aware of the manipulation attempt reduces its power.
Massively. In a world that profits from blindness, seeing clearly is the most dangerous thing you can do.
And finally, let's circle back to the power of questions. You said it's key.
It's the core issue, really. Lack of critical thinking often boils down to not knowing how to ask the right questions, accepting things at face value, never digging deeper.
Well, the great thinkers, the innovators, they questioned everything.
Relentlessly. Simple but powerful questions. Why is this true? Who says? Who benefits? What's the evidence against it? How could I be wrong?
These aren't just questions, they're like weapons against lies and illusions.
Absolutely. Think about history breakthroughs, revolutions. They often started with someone asking, wait, what if we're wrong about this accepted truth?
But most people are afraid to ask those questions, aren't they? Fear of challenging authority, fear of being wrong themselves.
So they stay silent. They accept. They obey.
But you, not anymore. That's the goal here.
Exactly. The final instruction, make questioning a habit for everything you read, hear, watch, and especially for your own thoughts.
Because the truth doesn't come from easy answers. It comes from daring to ask what others won't.
So let's wrap this up. You've just unlocked a secret most people never grasp. Your mind. It's your greatest weapon.
And potentially your biggest enemy.
Right. We've talked about the threats. Manipulation, bias, misinformation, your own brain's tricks.
But now you see the traps. You can spot the illusions. And honestly, that alone puts you way ahead of the curve, ahead of 99% of people, maybe.
Because critical thinking, it's not just a skill. It's a survival tool in the modern world. It separates followers from leaders, the played from the winners.
And right now, you have that advantage. You're one of the few who can start to see through the noise.
But here's the real question, the challenge. What will you do with this power?
Will you actually start questioning everything, even your own sacred cows?
Will you challenge your beliefs? Will you refuse to be manipulated?
Because knowing isn't enough, is it? Action is everything.
This deep dive, it's just the starting point. It's about taking your thinking to the next level, actively engaging.
Because in this world, full of noise, distractions, and people trying to tell you what to think, the ability to think clearly, independently, critically, that's not just an advantage, it's essential. Now go use that power.